kids with a car for telling the parents. And Brian Brewer had let go, not fire, but had released Garfield Little Dog Still. And because he had a lot of backing in the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council, he was re-elected into the Oglala Sioux tribe of the Great Teton Nation. And not the federal government, local, state, or federal government did not do nothing about it. And this was also reported to Tracy Tuvalu. The FBI, the CIA, and the BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs, never did nothing about it. There's also a case here in Reno, Nevada, where there's a young lady, her son was shot in the Walmart parking lot of the Reno Sparks Indian Colony within the boundaries of the Paiute Nation. Go ahead, Rose. I just had to say that. That made me feel good because he has no business sodomizing young boys and raping girls and branding them with a machete. I wish I was a man.
What I've been seeing is that we have a lot of sheep and wolf clothing on tribal council. People are saying that they are working to keep alcohol out when they're really not. They're just trying to keep people at ease, to keep them from being upset. So they think that they have somebody on their side when they're not really on their side. 2 tribal council members that voted not have alcohol were caught within 2 weeks after that negotiating with alcohol distributors. Also, the money that's been sitting forever on the Black Hills, there is one council member that has been to Washington within the past 2 weeks that is trying to negotiate and try to find out how to get that money for the Black Hills.
So they can embezzle it. The 2 people she's talking about is Brian Brewer of the Oglala Sioux tribe and Robin Tapio, both half-breeds. They're not full-bloods. The money is to go to the full-bloods, not the half-breeds. And the Lakota people don't touch that because of them treaties. They're never supposed to be for sale.
Black Hills is not for sale.
Land is not for sale. I hope the UN is listening to this radio show.
The land was stolen through fraud by trickery. The original 10 treaties, which were the commerce treaties, only leased the land and gave them permission to toil the first 6 inches of soil for farming. And there was a stump fee to be paid, $3 per tree for every tree that they cut down. And none of that has ever been paid forward to any of the Indian nations. None of it. The British Crown, on the death of one of the kings, and I forgot which one it was, it's back in the early 1300s, stated to the king, if you would like me to forgive you of your sins, you will turn your treasury over to me. That was a pope. So you can buy forgiveness of sin? That's interesting.
I found a
Bible says that there's only one who forgives sin, and that's God.
I found a story the other day that said that at least 40% of our tax dollars that are paid in by U.S. citizens eventually go to the Vatican.
Actually, you're wrong. They all go there.
Oh.
And the reason for that is that King's Charter, which I have now put an international arrest warrant out for that, and the King's Charter and the Charter of Carolina. And there's going to be 2 more documents that I put an international arrest warrant out for. And one of them is the United States of America, DBA Corporation. Because it's unconstitutional.
You know what I think is unconstitutional? Is having gold, oil, and energy on your land, and you don't even get a red penny. I have that on my land, and shoot, I'm broker in hell, and here it is Christmas time. and I'm a Lakota.
Well, with this picture, Joanne, Kuwait, one of the largest oil-producing countries in the world, when they receive money from the oil, they consider it to be everybody's property, and they divide the profits to all members of the country.
Yeah, but that's Kuwait. We're not in Kuwait. We're on our land.
Just saying. So, since God owned the land to begin with, and the American Indians never owned the land. They never had deeds and titles to land.
We never had paper either.
That's exactly right.
Actually, the Hopi had
this is how they stole the land, okay? They came in and they set up their title companies, and they began writing papers saying, oh, we own this land, we're selling it to you, blah, 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 blah. That is how they stole it. The Indians were divided the country up by territory.
Well, I have a solution for all this mess. My solution is every nationality on this land marches towards Washington, and we just get rid of Washington, close it down, and build something different, because this corporation, this DBA bankruptcy, de facto, no good damn business here, that's superseding by lie after lie using a piece of paper, is not working for none of us. And they're going around the world and telling the world that this land is America, and Mr. Obama should be ashamed of himself for Martinelli's, or was it Martinelli or Morales' death?
They're in violation of their public trust.
Yes, and what I'm saying here is nobody believes them no more. So why keep somebody around you don't trust? I mean, even if a thief came in my home, or your home, or any one of us, we would ask them to leave because they're not welcome back. So why do we want to keep the government around, who is not even a government to begin with? They're homeless people who landed on our land, who was lost at sea. Maybe we need to send them back to Europe.
Well, a lot of the people here are sheeple, and they're so used to being led, and they're so passive that they'll just keep putting up with it.
Yeah, most people don't have a clue of the fraud scheme they've played against us from the beginning. And this goes all the way back to 1492 when all this crap started. Because what they did was the Europeans emptied their jails, threw them on the three ships, and set them at sea. Go find a place to stay.
Yeah.
And if you do that and you find it and you colonize it for us, and you work for us for so many years, we'll give you the land. We'll give you so many acres of land. How could they make that agreement before they even knew the land existed, supposedly? And then the papal bull, Joanne, we didn't even mention the papal bull. The papal bull that was given to, which explorer was it down? He landed in South America. Anyway, that papal bull, and it's still on the website of the church. Well, any heathen who does not convert to the Catholic Church is to be killed. That's what it says. So the Catholic Church is not a church or a religion. It is a cult. Because if you have to force people into your religion under threat of death, that's a cult. and they slaughtered millions of us.
You know, what I don't understand is, what kills me inside is we have Indians like Garfield Little Dog Still and John Yellowbird Still and Kevin Still who claim to be Lakotas, and they embezzle from their tribal members, and they sell drugs, and they give the kids cocaine, and they sodomize the boys, and they gang rape little girls, and they intimidate them, and they call themselves Lakotas. As true Lakota people, we don't care for those kind of people. Even in prison, there's no races in prison when it comes to men who molest children. And for Garfield and Kevin and John Yellowbird Still, I am recording this and I am going to put it on Facebook, and I want the world to know what kind of man you are. Because you're not a man. You're some kind of monster that the government created because they're monsters. But the difference between that government and you is, at least they are doing it on paper. You did it to our whole entire Lakota nation. You disgraced the name Wounded Knee. And you've hurt not just the descendants, but the future generation. You should have took a gun and killed all of us if you didn't like us. And I don't have the right words to tell you over the internet or the radio. But I promise you in my heart.
As long as you say, in my opinion.
In my opinion, I kick your ass. But it's not going to work like that. In my opinion, I hope the government lives up to their onerous fiduciary duty of putting a monster like yourself away. I pray that. I hope that. Because a child molester doesn't deserve to be free and be in government office like you guys. And I hope that the United Nations hears that. Because I'm not the only one who's mad, but the grandmothers are mad for you hurting their children. Our people are angry for what you have done. That's not a Lakota way. I don't care how many sundances you go to, or ceremonies, or how long you read the Bible. When you do that to somebody, it's going to take a lot of forgiving. But you'll meet your maker one day. I hope. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just every time I think of this conversation and how this man did that to our children, knowing the hardships we already have, on top of what we got by the United States government, it's a damn shame, in my opinion.
Still in office.
Joanne, it's not the United States government that's doing this. It's the employees of the United States government that are doing this.
Thank you for correcting that.
We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish, and you can read it all, okay, states that we, the men and women of this nation, are the government. So don't tell me it's the government that's doing this. It's our employees who are doing this.
Oh, they're a de facto government. They're not a de jure. They're operating under color of law.
Right. Fraud by trickery.
The American people need to come together and, as taxpayers, demand accountability as to where their tax dollars are going in this situation, and demand check and balance system, and demand that the federal government gets involved in these corrupt dealings.
I have already written to my congressman, and I said, you are now aware of the situation and the problem. What are you going to do to correct it?
The apostolic letter. I vote for the apostolic letter to be enforced on John Yellowbird Still, Garfield Still, and Kevin Still, because they had knowledge of what was going on. And the federal government employees for not doing nothing about it, like Tracy Tublue.
But all the correct and appropriate government agencies have been made aware of the situation, that there are third world countries sitting right here in the United States due to corruption.
Exactly.
And they're choosing not to do anything about it. And the reason why they are is because they don't have to face accountability, because the American public is ignorant to the fact that these things are going on within their own country. They don't let this information out. Do you ever see this on the news?
Well, this is the first show that I've ever been on that I've been able to expose the truth. And if anybody doubts I'm exposing this, they can go to my court cases, because I've written it into the cases. Everything from the Supreme Court, Rod Class and I sued the United States government back in 2000. I started my first lawsuit against government in 2008. In 2009, I believe it was, Rod and I sued the corporation. And in that case, we filed it in U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C. The defendants picked the case up without a motion for change of venue, moved it over to the bankruptcy court, and then made a motion to dismiss for lack of subject matter jurisdiction, and the court bought it and ruled against us.
Oh, wow.
Now, if you think that our court case wasn't strong, Google my name and Rod Class. My last name spelled B-U-E-S-S, and Rod Class, and you can start checking our history and the court cases we filed, and then you can check my name along with Winona Palamente in U.S. District Court, in the Ohio Supreme Court. The defendants in the Supreme Court never answered summons. We made a motion for default judgment, and the court ignored it and then dismissed the case. This is how crooked these people are.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing on every avenue. It's like,
Yes, it is.
you have a whole government that does not care that from the bottom FBI agents and BIA agents and everything within these reservations, they are all getting their pockets lined. And they'll ignore these cases as long as they're allowed to, due to that corruption.
Yeah, I think I'm on my sixth case, three current and two on Court of Appeals in the Sixth Circuit. So I'm a very busy guy.
And I hear, last year there was a story of some news guy with 2020 or Dateline was talking about how they need to stop funding the reservations because of the handouts. No, they need to stop funding the corruption.
Exactly.
And allow the reservations to have the money and the things that they were promised in their treaties. So the rest of us could live on this in this country.
Yeah, my ancestors goes all the way back to the founders of the Constitution of the United States. And I am proud to be a fighter for freedom of the American people.
And the Oglala Tribal Council, they talk about how poor the tribe is and what bad shape they're in. But yet, that Tribal Council goes on big expenditures for travel allowances, where they're paying masseurs, where they're paying for the best hotels and the best food. My opinion is if your tribe is poor and you have people that are freezing and starving, you have no right to live in luxury off of their backs.
Well, the Iroquois Nation Iroquois Nation owns a very, very large building in Washington, D.C., which the Inspector General of the Treasury has his office.
Well, actually, Tammany Hall, a friend of mine and his family, Michael Wolf, was suing New York City because of the title dispute over Tammany Hall, which is their city hall.
I think the Mohawk owned Manhattan Island.
Yeah. Well, you know, right now, it's like, I mean, if you're a Bible believer, we're in the same situation right now as it was back just before the deluge. Everything is that bad.
It is.
Including, Jesus said in 21 Matthew, he says, as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be in these days.
Mm-hmm.
And you've even got abductions going on. The Bible's full of UFO references, and fallen angels coming down and abducting people and crossbreeding with them. That's going on here too. And so the whole prophetic picture is full. And if you want to know more information about where we stand in the prophetic picture, I encourage people to go on to YouTube and watch a video called Daniel's Timeline. It's about an hour and a half, and I'm not going to say any more, because if I told you about it, everybody I tell what Daniel's Timeline's all about, they say, "Oh no, that's not true," and then they sit and watch it for 90 minutes, and they'll go, and they just go, "Wow, I didn't know that."
Yeah, they predicted 50 years ago, thousands of years ago.
Yep.
Well, Blue Otter also, some of the Hopi elders talked about, they said at their point, and this is back years ago, and they said they felt at that time that it was likely that the only remedy to our situation with the greed and corruption running at the levels they were at, and this was back then, they thought we had passed the point of being able to turn around, that the only thing left was purification.
Well, they said back when Hale-Bopp was in the sky that 7 years from the time it disappeared, the red star Kachina would be discovered when the blue star was in the sky. And I didn't even know about that prophecy until the month it was supposed to be fulfilled. And so I got on NASA, space.com, and put in the word red star. 2 weeks before that, a red dwarf was discovered 10 light years from Earth, while Comet Neat was in the sky, the brightest comet ever seen. And the Hopi called this, they said that this would be known as Sakwasoha, and they said that it would be benevolent. It said it would give us a chance, a last chance to get together and purify ourselves, and if we didn't do it, that we would be purified. And they said after that, the comets that would be following that would not be benevolent. Now we're looking at Comet Ison with a debris trail that the Earth is going to pass through in January, and it's going to take an entire week for us to pass through it. And Mark, you were telling me, tell them what you told me about the possibility of what might happen with flaming balls falling out of the sky, just like it talks about in the Bible.
Well, it's
you want to?
It has to do with. All kinds of stuff could be falling out of the sky, and it has to do with. The Maya talk about at one point in time that there was, if you look in the records, the bitumen or oil compound hydrocarbons were literally raining out of the sky. Well, we understand how that can happen because we have a moon in our own solar system that's doing that right now as we speak. It's the Titan, the moon of Saturn, and it has literally sort of oceans of methane and hydrocarbons, and they move up in the atmosphere and they rain back down. We have hydrocarbons, massive amounts of methane right now moving up into Earth's atmosphere from the oceans. If you do Google search on methane and oceans and releases and records and stuff like that, you'll find the information. There is the methane that can come now. Now, there's one other unique characteristic of Titan, and that is Titan has almost no magnetic field. The Earth and the Sun's both magnetic fields have been lowering, going down. We are looking at the potential at some point in the future that the Earth's magnetic fields could reverse. If they do that, they could go down to zero. If they do that, then all that methane going up will come back down.
Yep.
Also, magnetic reversals on the Sun are involved with natural nuclear explosions. In other words, we don't have to have human beings doing it. We could have nuclear explosions going on all over the planet. On top of this, so we could have oil coming down. It could get set on fire. We could have massive amounts of all kinds of stuff coming down at us, including micro iron dust that burned the holes through the mastodon, the ones that, they found the stuff in their mouth and they were flash frozen. Well, one other thing that they had is they had micro iron holes bored through their tusk and bones and stuff raining down out of the sky. Radiation, some of that bitumen could catch on fire, the oil. So, yeah, we could literally have, and this is all deposited in geologic layers on the Earth. There's a good book, if you want to read it. It's called Magnetic Reversals by Robert Felix, I believe. It's a fairly straightforward, simple book, and it spells this out pretty simply, pretty easy read, and this is something that's very real and can happen. And if we start we're seeing indications in the last 10, 15 years. We've had animals affected by electromagnetics. We've had airline strips landing things reoriented because the pole's shifting, magnetic north and such. So if our field goes down, and this is tied to the Hopi's twins at each of the poles. They connect into the magnetic fields of the Earth. And the Hopi said, if we do not, if we get out of line, the Creator will tell, the two twins, the poles, to shake up a little bit. That causes the weather and stuff to change, to warn us, to get us our attention and make us think about what we're doing. If we don't listen, the Creator just tells the two brothers at the poles just to let go. Then you're in trouble. And
back in the 1850s, we passed through a comet debris field, and about a third of the state of Wisconsin was on fire for a while. And so all kinds of things can happen with these cosmic objects. And
we have, I believe, right now 5 comets in the solar system, not just Ison. We have Ison, Lovejoy, Enki, and 2 others. I forget the other 2 names. But there's 5 of them in here right now.
Well, just with what you just pointed out, and if you look at the Book of Revelation and how God explains how this is all going to end, on His return, in the Battle of Armageddon, the United States is not mentioned, and
the U.S. is the first government that will be broken up.
Right.
Oh, by the way, if you want to know more about this information, go to Google the words Hopi prophecy fulfilled, and you'll get a result from wolflodge.org, and you can read about this discovery. And because people are confused and they're wondering whether Ison's the Blue Star or whatever. No, that's already been fulfilled. And but you know, the third prophecy of Fatima, that was never publicly announced. But back in 1985, there was a group of faithful Catholics that buttonholed John Paul II, and he said, well, you know, if we were to release that millions of people would die in the blink of an eye because ice sheets and oceans would sweep over entire continents, that's not something much to be publicized. And this is exactly, you know, what would happen if we had a pole reversal, and you know, something like a dark star coming by, and its south pole or north pole grabbing the whole of our south pole and just flipping us over.
Well, look at the army.
Well, we don't even need a object to do it to us, because if our magnetic fields go, then the Earth is like, it can be thought of like a dynamo. In other words, it doesn't require the entire Earth mass, the core, mantle, and crust to flip. All it requires is for the dynamo and the magnetic polarity reversal of the dynamo of the Earth, like a motor. If you take a motor, you have the outside casing of the motors like the crust, and you have the inner parts of the motor like the core and stuff. What happens when you flip the electrical leads, and positive is negative and negative is positive?
Reverse polarity, yeah.
Yeah, and the crust is the part. So the crust, all that has to happen is for the crust to change in the way its relationship to the core and the mantle. And that was I think Hapgood's book talked about that a little bit. But that's all that would have to happen. So it doesn't require the entire mass of the planet. All it requires is the crust to move. And we got problems.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's the reason why, you know, we've been telling people for years, get out of the cities. The Hovia long said, get out of California. But they're saying get up to the mountains and forest, get up to a high enough elevation where you wouldn't be affected by flooding. And because there have been so many people that have seen, you know, going back to the late 80s, you know, the Gloria Del Toys and the Gordon Michael Scallions and all kinds of people have seen the future flooding. And matter of fact, the winter of 2009-10, I was visiting with the Cherokee Ottaway down in Texas, and I told him about a dream vision I had, what I was told back in '92, and he just laughed, and I said, "What are you laughing about?" And he said, "Well, I was shown that the Great Plains would be flooded," and he just laughed, and he said, "Well, I was up on top of Lookout Mountain, you know, west of Denver, doing Humblecha, and I probably mispronounced that, Joanne. I'm a Cherokee, you know." And he says, I saw the wave coming across the Great Plains. He says it flushed Denver just like a toilet. Anyway.
Well, there was that flood that came down Colorado mountains a few weeks back. Remember? And it was pronounced right, Humblecha. That was good. I'm just listening. I'm listening to what everybody has to say. I always have to think.
Bear Anderson. Yeah, Mad Bear Anderson, the medicine man, at Tuscarora. He was at Alcatraz. He was the spiritual guy behind the American Indian movement. In 1972, he was driven from New York out to Salt Lake City. And when you get to a certain place east of Salt Lake, you can start to see the valley floor. And he freaked out and demanded that the driver stop. And he got out and looked around and shook his head and got back in the car. And she said, "What's wrong, Bear?" And he said, "Oh, it's too bad." And he says, "I've seen that in vision, and that's going to be flooded someday." And, you know, drove downtown, and and he pointed at the, oh, see that gold statue on top of that building is pointing at the Mormon temple. So that's got to be flooded all the way up to the bottom of the statue. Well, the bottom of the statue is the level of Old Lake Bonneville.
Huh. I live right in Lake Bonneville area.
Yeah.
I have to share some about my experience going towards South Dakota. Last Sunday, last week I got a phone call that my Aunt Zelda, fast horse spotted bear, passed away. And my brother, he was critical in the hospital. And I was waiting till after Thanksgiving to go to South Dakota. And I was planning a trip that way to say my goodbyes to my brother, because he has 7 fistulas in his stomach that will never heal. And my brother, he's going to be passing away soon. And it's hard to say that. It's hard to come to those kind of terms when you know that. And every day you have to think of something good. And I had some friends who had given me their frequent flyer miles, free frequent flyer miles. And I had rode over from Reno to Denver, and to talk about what you guys are saying is, I remember flying over between Reno to Winnemucca. I believe they call those round farms, where in the ground they look like a farm field, but they're round. And there was like 100 of them side by side. And I remember we were flying past Winnemucca, and there was those mountains there. And never knew in my whole life how many mountains were between Winnemucca and Salt Lake. And here there was this, there was this guy, he was an Indian. It was a picture of an Indian on his knees with a gourd, singing towards the sky. He was praying towards the sky. As we were flying over that area, the Ruby Mountains, as you're saying, as we were flying over that, we come across the Salt Lake, and on the land there was a woman. She looked like an Indian woman with long, beautiful hair. And she looked like she threw a blanket on the ground. Like she was throwing a blanket out on the ground. And if you know how to throw a blanket and you whip that end of it, that end of the blanket will curl and then it'll lay flat on the ground. And I remember seeing that, and as I looked into the sky, straight across the sky, underneath the airplane was clouds. They were forming from Salt Lake, and they were looked like they were coming towards Nevada. But then right next to the airplane, I'd say maybe about 4 or 5 feet away from the airplane, there was a circle. It looked like a dust circle, but the dust is on the ground. The dust is not way thousands of feet in the air, but this was like gray, like when the airplane takes off, you know that you can see the heat wave from the airplane when it takes off. But this wasn't an airplane. This was a round circle, and it was gray, looked like a dust cloud, and it was spinning clockwise. It was spinning clockwise right next to the airplane. And those of us who were sitting on the left-hand side of the airplane, we were all looking at this. And that was a time I wish I would have had a camera to videotape this thing that was in the air. But what you're talking about, I think it's real. I think that what is about to happen is going to happen. But if we pray and we take care of one another, God is going to help us to live. And that's what I do a lot of times. I always say, I want to help our people to live. I don't mean the Lakota, Nakota, Dakota, or just Wounded Knee or Pine Ridge. I mean every one of us. This is our land. God give it to us. We're supposed to take care of it. Somehow, some way, when the people get into office or they get too rich, they forget about who they are, where they come from, who their family members are. And they want to be like someone, but this someone don't even know who they are. They don't know where they come from. But if we all believe in God, Creator Almighty, we're going to be okay. But if we don't, then Salt Lake, Reno, California. There's an old story I remember when I was a kid. My auntie, she said, there's going to be a big storm come one day, and it's going to take out New York and parts of Texas, and it's going to come inland, and it's going to almost reach Minnesota that way. That's how much the ocean's going to come on that side. This other side, that volcano's going to go off, and it's going to shoot hundreds of miles in the air, and it's going to, that ash is going to come over, and it's going to be I forget how many feet high she said it's going to be, but it's going to cover the earth, this earth that we walk on, because we're not taking care of it. She said there's gonna be a flood. There's gonna be a flood that's gonna come, and it's gonna come to California. But because those reservoirs aren't strong enough, it'll break every single reservoir in California. And those mountains will hold that water back to a certain point, but it won't hold it all back. And it's really scary. It's really scary how our Indian people treat one another and forget this traditional value, these praying, these ways of life. It's not about just a treaty, but it's about God. It's about Creator. It's about this land He given us. We're supposed to be grateful for it, not ungrateful. We're supposed to be kind and loving to one another. And we're not. I mean, look at what I said about Garfield Still, how he's sodomizing boys. Boys aren't to be sodomized. That's your private, that's like a gold mine for just a man. Nobody's to touch that. Girls, same thing. That part there, that love, that compassion for one another, never supposed to go away. And young kids are having babies. Babies are having babies. And so maybe we deserve this. Maybe we deserve to see the reality of our actions up close. I know I'm scared of it. I don't want to live through it, and I beg God that my son don't live through it, but unfortunately I don't run this land, and God is showing me that, because my brother, when I seen those 7 fistulas on his stomach, I begged God for my brother to live, but my brother and I, we knew different. We knew that my brother wouldn't make it, and my brother, he got to talk to them eagle feathers for 7 days while I was in South Dakota. And it was probably the hardest thing for us, because my brother was the one who shot me in my hand. And when we were kids, we were playing hide and seek, and I was playing under a car, and that car fell on my leg and damn near took it out. And it was like, you know, once my brother goes, then who's going to live this life with me? I mean, I got Hunka's brothers like Dave, and Hunka's sisters like Rose, and different ones that are around that are helping. But, you know, the reality of the story is we need to help take care of each other, and we need to take care of this land. And we don't need to destroy it by digging holes. Every time there's a hole dug, it's like an egg. It's like an egg. You take so many holes in the egg, and the egg is going to crack. And it's going to disintegrate. And that's what you guys were talking about. Those prophecies. And, you know, the sound of the flute. I always listen to the flute, and I think of how birds chirp and butterflies fly. And we're losing them things. We're forgetting who we are. Animals are growing to humongous size creatures nowadays that people never seen in their whole life. And these things, when they don't have a mind of their own, so they get mad, and if they hit something, it can crack the earth again, you know, something like that. Or if somebody's drilling on one side of the world and those animals hit a mountain under the water on the other side, you know, nobody thinks like that. And they all think about how much money they're going to get, who's going to live the richest. Even the millionaires, they have 1 to 12, the 12 richest billionaires in the world, how much money they have in their account. They forget about everybody else. But hopefully God will remember us. Hopefully God will have pity on those of us who are still here. And these things, that's why I want to say something too. I don't know how much time we have, but I wanted to say this is Pine Ridge, they don't have no propane, and I am trying to raise $50,000 for them, and I am putting it on the radio, so maybe some elders can have heat, some kids can be warm, and we may not do this forever and ever, but at least it's a try, you know, try to help the best way we can. And I hope that the United Nations is listening, and that you, for once in your lifetime, come and help our Indian people and help us to save this Mother Earth. You talk about peace. I see your web pages all over Facebook, and I'm on them. You talk about how much peace you want in the world. Well, come over here and help us to get rid of this federal government called themselves the United States of America Federal Government Corporation employees who embezzle this money. If anybody else in the world embezzled in different countries, they'd be in prison, their hands would be chopped off, they wouldn't be able to see their families, anything. But this corporation, they get to do that. So they too should be treated like anybody else, because they're no better than the rest of us. If they can do it, then so could everybody else. But if we can't do it, then why do they get special privileges? What makes them high and mighty, better than the rest of us? And those of us who are natives of the land, it's our land, it's not theirs. They were guests here. They're never supposed to do that. They were trusted servants. The Yerma Fides, utmost good faith, is broken in every way. So we get what we deserve when in the eyes of the Creator, if it's not in the eyes of justice or peace of the United Nations.
Right.
So before we close this up, if we can pray to Tunkashua, pray to God. Ask Him to please forgive us. Let Him hear what we have to say. Let Him know that our hearts and our minds are one with Him. That maybe our people, we can. But the way I feel myself, as a Lakota Teton Treaty member, activist, or however you want to look at me too, I got feelings. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm disappointed with the men who have hurt our children and raped our young girls. I'm disappointed about that. I thought I was mad about the paper and the embezzlement and all that, but this other one is far beyond that. It's gone too far, and in my opinion, something really needs to be done, and it needs to be done soon as possible. Because if we let it go undone, it's going to only get worse.
Yeah, before we go, and we do need to, want to encourage everybody to Google Lee Standing Bear's Vision on the Mountain. Lee Standing Bear is the elder of Manataka, Manataka, and Google that and read it. And we do need to go. I want to thank everybody, and we'll get back together soon, okay?
Let's pray.
Can I insert something real quick here?
Sure, go ahead.
Queen Elizabeth has actually resigned her throne, and she's in hiding right now. She resigned her throne to the Pope of the Anglican Church.
Interesting.
And she did that in 2011.
Yeah, I understand that when she met Haile Selassie, she kissed his ring, which means she would have recognized his authority. There's a lot of strange things that go on, really esoteric unless you know. But, hey, we need to go. They're going to cut our stream off. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on the show.
Let's say a quick prayer real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Atewa kantanka takashla wopla unshmailo omakiayo domwashte hecha oyatiki yuha chantewashte yuha helo. Atewa kantanka takashla shunka wakana tatanka na shunka ki yuha wakanki na mini wichoniki yuha domwashte hecha. Creator Almighty God, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the gifts you had given each and every one of us, a home, someplace warm to be, and some food to eat. Thank you for this day, and thank you for all my friends. Please clear our hearts of anything that is unsaid and undone. Please forgive us for hurting our Mother Earth. Guide us and protect us that we can have many more years of this land together. Aho, Madakiapi. Amen.
Oh, and stay on the line after I roll the outro music. Stay on the line, and we can chat for a few minutes in the green room. Thanks a lot, folks. We'll see you the next time. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Yeah, you guys can still chat for a while if you want to. Okay.
Okay. That was a good radio show. It was a lot.
We exposed a lot of information tonight, and I